Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to the webinar, Extending the Conversation, Creating Positive Culture in the Workplace, hosted by the Co-Occurring Collaborative Serving Maine, CCSME. I'm Kate Chichester, and I'm the Executive Director, and I will be starting us off today and moderating our panel. So today's program emerged out of a September forum that was hosted by CCSME through the Maine Behavioral Health Workforce Collaborative, which is funded by the Maine Department of Health and Human Services. CCSME, with its partners, hosts forums on various topics that warrant further exploration to support behavioral health workforce development. And the forum in September focused on the topic of recruitment and retention. And although the Department of Labor sees continued job growth in the healthcare and social assistance sectors, agencies are facing increasing difficulties in their recruitment and retention of employees. Workplace culture, which we will be exploring today through this webinar, is a critical level to employee engagement, as underscored in that previous discussion. So this webinar brings together leaders from 3 organizations, Community Care, Day One, and the Milestone Foundation, to discuss their experiences applying for and being recognized as best places to work in Maine in 2016. Our goal in this webinar is to explore the topic of workplace culture from the organizational perspective. You're invited to ask questions at any time during this webinar by using the question function in your control panel, which is on the right side of your screen. Just type your questions and the panelists will respond to the questions as they are able to during the discussion. We really welcome and hope that this can be as interactive as possible. Best Companies in Maine is a national organization that delivers the best places to work in Maine competition, and it was actually formed in 2014 with the purpose of identifying and recognizing best employers within a city, a state, a region, or industry sector. The BCJG partners with local media and other business and human resource organizations to publicize this opportunity and to encourage participation, and then recognizes those who make the list. The best places in Maine to work in 2016 actually recognized 75 companies, 4 of which 4 were behavioral health agencies, for their efforts to have established and consistently fostered outstanding workplace environments. So why do people participate? Why have these agencies participate? They choose to participate in this process for various reasons. One, they get some recognition and publicity, but maybe on a deeper level, it allows them to gain feedback from their employees to understand and support their goals of retention and recruitment of staff. So the eligibility to compete in this competition is straightforward, but agencies also have to be willing and open to the feedback the process affords to them. The assessment process is a 2-part process designed to gather detailed information about each participating organization. In Part 1, the employer completes a questionnaire on their benefits, policies, and practices, and then in Part 2, the employees of the company complete an employee survey that actually has 78 different statements to which they respond using a 5-point agreement scale. And the survey also has 2 open-ended questions and 7 demographic questions. And the results of these 2 parts are then analyzed and categorized according to the 8 core focus areas, which include the leadership and planning, the corporate culture and communication, role satisfaction, the work environment, the relationship with the supervisor, training and development resources, pay and benefits, and overall engagement. Then the collected information from these two instruments are combined to produce a detailed set of data to determine the strengths and the opportunities of the employer. The workplaces are ranked based on this data to determine the winners, but all participating agencies receive the feedback reports. The report provides information from the survey and benchmarks it against the winners and the non-winners so that the agencies can compare and know where they might want to focus their efforts in the future. So today, the three agencies will explore their participation in the Best Places to Work in Maine contest and the efforts to create a positive workplace culture. We have Dawn Freeman, who is the Human Resource Coordinator from Community Care. And Community Care began offering foster care services in Bangor some 20 years ago, and now actually offers comprehensive services to youth, families, and adults throughout Maine. Our next presenter, panelist is Caroline Raymond, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Day One. And since 1973, Day One has been serving Maine youth, families, schools, and community, providing services to address substance use and mental health disorders. Day One also has a prevention service with a school-based Natural Helpers of Maine program, which has been active for over 30 years. And last but not least, we have Bob Fowler, who is the Executive Director of the Milestone Foundation. The Milestone Foundation provides services to empower individuals with substance use and behavioral health disorders to attain stability, dignity, recovery, and enhanced quality of life, offering emergency shelter, medical managed detoxification, and long-term treatment in Portland and Old Orchard Beach. So we will begin by asking our panelists, why did you choose to why did you choose to apply to the Best Places to Work in Maine? We're going to start with Dawn, and then we're going to have Caroline follow up, and Bob. Again, please feel free at any time to type in your questions, and I would just ask that the panelists to repeat the questions before responding. So why don't we begin?
Sure. So actually, it started for us when one of our staff was at a red light, sitting in her car. She noticed a big banner on a building that said that they were one of the best places to work in Maine. So she, of course, thought, well, we're one of the best places to work, so how do we get a banner? So that's really what started it for us. We started looking into the process, and as we really reviewed what they looked for through the application process, we realized that it was very detailed and would offer us a great deal of feedback, especially through the staff survey. So we decided to try for it. That was actually 3 years ago that we tried for the first time. So I think the important piece to us was that we know that in order to provide really high quality services in sports store clients, we need to support our staff. They're our most valuable asset. So this award really tells us that our staff are valued, and this is a good place to work for them, and that allows them to go out and do good work with our clients. So that was kind of our thinking behind it.
Okay, Caroline, what do you think?
Hey,
what?
So why did we choose to apply to the Best Places to Work? Very similar to Dawn. I think that most of our staff believed that we were one of the best places to work, and we are very fortunate to have a high level of retention, but recruitment is definitely an area that's more of a struggle for us, especially in some of our more rural areas. And so this, this process really helped us to see what it was that the employees liked, and we were able to do that through the process of the survey and being able to get the survey results back. And so we started this process back in 2009, I believe was the first time, no, 2007 was the first time that we had applied, and we have done it for a majority of the years since then. And we just knew that, having this feedback from the survey would help us to one, really help shape our culture and look at areas that we needed to do some more work on, and also to help us recruit people, because, who doesn't want to work in one of the best places?
Okay, Bob, so why did you choose to apply?
I think I've generally been aware of Best Places to Work, but haven't haven't known it real intimately. Our human resources director had been involved in a prior organization as the best places to work. And so she was the one who had suggested that we consider this. And I think our primary hope, we actually, this was our first year applying, and we really didn't have expectation of being selected. Our hope was that it would be an avenue to get feedback from employees. There's an employee survey portion, as you mentioned, Kate, and employees are able to provide feedback to a whole range of questions to a third-party organization, which I think probably makes them more likely to share information than if, say, we ourselves did a Survey Monkey. So that was our primary hope, and actually we did get a lot of great feedback. I do see a question here from William McPeck asking about how many employees does each organization have. I'll mention that milestone. We were a $3 million organization, and we have about 70 plus full part-time and per diem, about 35 full and part-time employees.
Okay, maybe everyone could just weigh in. Yes, Dawn, go ahead.
Sure. We have 106 part-time and full-time employees.
Okay, and day one.
And this is Karen. And at day one we have about 80 employees, and I would say about a third of them are part-time employees.
All right. So why don't we go to the next questions, and actually I'm going to encourage you guys to kind of do respond to the next two questions. So what was that process like for you and your organization, and what did you learn from that process? So Dawn?
Sure. So the first time going through the process, again, was 3 years ago. It was really a pretty exciting process for us. Our executive director and our human resources director took care of all of the questionnaire pieces for the application questions. And then our management team and our supervisors communicated to all of our staff that we were going through this process and that they were going to be receiving a confidential survey, and just kind of encourage them to complete that survey and to be very honest in the survey to make it a valid process for us. So we submitted everything, and honestly, then the hardest part came. We had to sit back and wait for the results to come. So when we were notified that we were chosen, it was very exciting. We were all pretty excited about that. We attended the banquet having no idea where we placed. So when we found out we were in the top 10, we kind of had a little mini celebration. And then when we found out we actually placed 6th, we again celebrated because we were very proud of that accomplishment. It was the first time going through the process, and we realized pretty quickly that we were competing against mostly traditional for-profit businesses. There weren't a whole lot of nonprofits in there. So those businesses, I think there were several banks, several car dealerships, some insurance companies. So we can't really compete with them when it comes to compensation or some of the perks, and we know that. So we really try to do it through our culture and the support that we provide to our staff. So winning that award told us that we were on the right track and we could compete with those big for-profit businesses, that we were doing okay. So that was our first year. We applied again the following year, and we placed 5th. So we bumped up a slot, which was great. And then last year was our 3rd try. We actually placed 2nd. So very, very proud of that. Again, very exciting. I think our management team and our supervisors are really mostly proud of it because it tells us that our staff really want to be here and really want to work for us. So obviously very important for retention. But our staff really have expressed pride, too, in being part of one of the best places to work. So it's proud for the entire agency, not just the leadership. And what did we learn from the process? Well, again, I think it validated for us. You know, we're on the right track with what we do with our staff. We work really hard to make community care a great place to work. So that tells us, you know, your work is really paying off. It is a great place to work. It also showed us the areas that we need to improve on. And I think that shows through, you know, we were 6th place to 5th place to 2nd place. So we took that feedback very seriously, and we really implemented any changes that we could make based on it. And it allows us to be mindful when we make decisions about how they will impact staff, because it told us, you know, some of the things we need to change, but it also told us the things that we need to leave alone that our staff are happy with and not to touch those as well.
Thank you. Caroline?
Very similar to Don in terms of what was the process like, and the staff were informed, of this process and how it would work, and that the survey is confidential, which I think is important. And we too really wanted to encourage people to be completely honest. The first time, and I think, every time you're sort of like, oh gosh, what's the feedback going to be like? And I think what's really nice about the survey is that, like you went over, Kate, the results are put underneath categories. And so it really helps you to see what categories you're doing really well in, and what areas may need more attention. And so we too have tried to look at that data and do the best we can under the constraints a nonprofit has. We experienced the same thing as Don did. Every year we seem to be sitting next to a car dealership that, is for profit, and they have some really great perks, that in the nonprofit world we can never offer. But I think that that's also important to acknowledge, to our employees. And we too know that, by eliminating certain things like vacation time, that could save us money and increase, the amount of services we can provide. But we know that that is a very valuable thing to our employees, through this survey. And so it's an area that we don't touch because, retaining and celebrating our employees is the most important. Like Don said, they are our biggest asset. And so this process has really helped us to understand what is important to our employees. And so, in terms of the process, the first year we did it, we didn't have as great of a response to the survey. And, we had to do a little bit more education to help them understand it and send some reminders, because you do have to hit a certain level, a percentage of your employees have to respond in order to be included. And so, there took a little bit of reminding and helping employees see that this is a valuable thing to participate in. But, we've been doing it, we've, I think, participated at least 6 times since 2007, and it doesn't take as much reminding now that, we've been doing it. And the same experience is Don, you don't know where you place when you're invited to the banquet. And so it's a really fun way to again recognize employees, and we try to invite employees, put it out there who's interested in coming this year, and we like to get a nice mix from all components. And we have people all over the state, so we've had people travel down from Bangor to come, and it's just a really fun atmosphere. They had this great photo booth this year, with some props, and you get silly and you get to really join in with the people, other organizations, and have some fun. And so it's really a fun time. And, we made it, to number 4 this year, which was, one of the highest we've had. So that was exciting. And, we hope to make it into that top 3 like Don, because then you get to go up on stage and, have your picture taken. So, yeah, but I would say that that's what the process has been for us. And we've learned a great deal about what is important to our employees through this experience.
Thank you. Bob, we also have a question here. Maybe I'm thinking that maybe we go back around, but if you want to tackle this question, Bob, in your response, and then we can ask Dawn and Caroline to also respond to the question. The question itself is, please, would each participant talk a little bit about the senior leadership and line management folks, specifically what they're doing to foster a positive workplace culture, their mindset, their actions, their talk, and not necessarily the employee benefits offered. So.
Okay, so I'll start talking about just the process, the best places part of the question. And this, again, this is our first shot at this, and our first experience applying. And one of the things that we ran up against were just some internal barriers as Caroline mentioned, there's a threshold that you need to meet in order to be considered, and a threshold in terms of employee participation. And we found that we ran into some challenges with just employees who would check their email or not, or have access to email. And so there was some work to just kind of remind people and encourage them to participate. So, and I think, like the others said, I suspect that over the years, as we continue to apply, that will become easier and easier as we work out some of those sort of logistical pieces. I think the survey question itself, or the survey itself, and a number of the questions, because it's really very kind of cross-sector, and there are a lot of different organizations that are being surveyed, for-profit, not-profit, et cetera. There were questions on there around different perks that some organizations offer, like, do you offer gym memberships to your staff? Well, the answer is no, and we never really thought about that. There were a number of questions that were on the survey that of things that we did not offer, but really would never have thought to offer. And I think that was useful to us as a way to just sort of broaden our thinking about what kinds of enhancements to the benefit package we might be able to provide. You know, there are certainly many we would love to provide, but just resources are such that that's not possible. But it was, you know, just the fact that the questions were on there, and it was helpful to kind of to prompt our thinking. And Kate, would you? I can talk about the question around senior leadership.
Right, and then actually the next question that we have is to talk a little bit about how the process benefited you and your organization. So it kind of leads into what was the benefits, and this question specifically around the senior management leadership. So go ahead, Bob.
Okay. Well, the survey provided us really a lot of rich feedback from the employees, and that was probably the single biggest benefit. There's certainly the exposure, and you know, the banquet, and being able to advertise in the recruitment efforts to list yourself as a best place to work. I know that for me as a candidate, that has meant something before, right? That's provided some assurance that there's some threshold that has been met by this prospective employer. And I think it's also for us been helpful for our fundraising efforts. That we've referenced the fact that we've been designated the best place to work in Maine in some of our foundation grant applications. And so I think it's really been quite beneficial from a number of different perspectives.
Okay. So, Dawn, do you want to follow up on that and talk a little bit about the benefits for your organization, and also answer the question about the senior leadership?
Sure. So I think probably the biggest benefit that we noticed was in our recruitment. I'm kind of the first point of contact for applicants, and many of the people who inquire about our positions will specifically say, you know, I saw you were one of the best places to work. And they'll ask questions about why. You know, why did you get that recognition? So I'm able to really talk to them about the agency and kind of who we are, and that makes a big difference with recruitment to be able to do that. So I think that's probably the biggest benefit we've seen. I think the other benefit we've seen kind of gets to the question about culture and leadership. We've really made this part of our daily culture. As far as our management team, with each meeting, part of our agenda is to talk about staff retention, staff satisfaction, what are some changes that we can make that we know that will help with that. So it's become just part of our normal dialogue that we have, is talking about, you know, what can we do for our staff that we aren't already doing. And we invite our employees to talk with us at any point. We very much have an open door policy. My door is always open except for when I'm doing a webinar, so it's closed right now. But staff know that they can come in at any time and talk to any one of the management team members. I think they feel a real relationship with us and not just that we're somebody sitting behind a closed door and we'll answer email once in a while. You know, we're really there for them. One of the specific things we do, I think that might help with answering the question, we do a lunch with management each month where the management team will actually travel to our different offices and sit with staff and just enjoy lunch and just have kind of a free-flowing conversation. So staff can use that opportunity to talk about how they're doing and what they're seeing, and are things going well, are there things that we need to work on. So it's those kinds of things that we've seen just have become part of our day-to-day being as an agency. So I think that's where one of the biggest differences has come in.
Caroline?
Sure. So I think that, you know, we are an agency that has been evolving, and, you know, we try to listen to what the employees are saying and looking at the results of the survey. And to speak to the question, what are the senior leaders doing? You know, a big change has been to have better communication and really make sure information is flowing in both directions, and that you know, that we're trying to elicit ideas of how we can make things better, you know, from the staff, and really try anything that is suggested. We try not to kill ideas, is sort of a new phrase that's coming around. And, you know, we need to maybe poke around at the idea, but really trying to make anything possible and be more saying yes instead of no. We've been talking in the senior program leaders meeting that we have, which is every other week, about how the senior leaders are the billboards, you know, for our agency. And so, you know, how they're interacting with others, both clients and staff, you know, really sets the tone, and how to really, you know, use positive communication and positive attitude, and, you know, all the things that we know can dampen the culture of an organization. We're using a book called Soup. I'm not sure if anyone has read that book, but it's about community. It's about organizational culture and how to set that tone. And so we're taking some of the material from that and reviewing it, and you know, and hopefully it's trickling down and helping to create, you know, the community that we all want to be working in. And I think one of the strengths of Day One has always been our employees do come first, and that things that you can't really put a price tag on, like flexibility. You know, that if you know, people have a doctor's appointment, or you know, their child is sick, or whatever that may be, like that comes first. That people have to be taking care of themselves. And I think in the nonprofit world, you know, where we're all serving others, self-care is, you know, one of those things that needs to be right up front. And I think that self-care and supervision are some of the strengths of this organization, and that's helped us and been reflected in the survey and in the results of, you know, being placed in the best places to work.
Thank you. Bob, we kind of reordered ourselves a bit, but any other comments that you might have around the benefits of the organizational culture and how you responded to try and support that culture?
Well, I think a lot of the strategies that that Dawn and Caroline talked about are similar to those that we've used at Milestone. You know, I remember learning forever ago, and probably many on the call, or everybody on the call, has heard about the management by walking around concept, and just the idea of organizational leaders getting out and about and seeing the programs. You know, to me, that's just really critical. It's really critical to be present to employees, to see the work that they're doing, so I try to do that personally, and I encourage our organizational leaders to do that. And that really does seem that based on the feedback we got from the Best Places survey, that has been something that staff have noted and appreciated.
Okay. So having talked a little bit about what this process was like, what you learned, and how it's benefited from your organization, do you have anything that you feel like you would like to suggest to others about how you have gone about to address your culture, or anything, you know, that pearls of wisdom that you would like to share that has really been helpful for you and your organization?
I think really this probably seems like common sense, but staff have pointed out how much they appreciate it, so maybe it's not. I think just asking the staff how they're doing and how the organization is doing for them, really listening to them. It means a lot to staff just to be asked and to feel like they have a voice in the process. And I think also when you do ask the question, you've got to be willing to hear both the good and the bad. Not everything's going to come back as all positive. So you have to be willing to hear that. You also have to be willing to act on what you learn, not just listen and take the information. If you're going to do that, you need to go to the next step and actually take some action and make changes that are reasonable, that you are able to make, and make sure that you're communicating with staff, you know, through the whole thing. If you're not able to make the changes, talk with your staff about why. You know, let them know that you would like to, or that you're trying to, or that maybe you've had to alter it, but that you are looking at their feedback and trying to adjust accordingly.
And I would agree with that. And I think that, you know, an area that we always struggle in terms of the feedback, and I can't remember what the name is, but I think, let me just look that up. Pay and benefits is the category that we always have the weakest or the lowest response in, and you know that's a tough one. And working for nonprofit, and especially when you haven't had rate increases for a long period of time, you know that can be challenging, and we understand that for staff, and so we're transparent about that. You know, we have those discussions to say we know that this is an area that is a struggle, you know, for this organization and for you as staff. You know, so I think that transparency is important, and I agree with Dawn that, you know, really listening and having, you know, pretty regular conversations about the culture. You know, like this week we had a situation where an employee wasn't happy, and, you know, using the culture as sort of the guiding tool, like, you know, what is this about and how does this fit with our culture? And, you know, are any of us, you know, we all contribute to the culture, and is there something that we're doing that's perpetuating this or creating this, and do we need to step back and you know, tweak things to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again, or how could we have stopped this from happening sooner? You know, so really using the culture as a guiding tool. And I think with that is making sure your board is also aware and has those cultural discussions, because you know, the board too also contributes to it, and it needs to you know, come in both directions. So that this year that's been an interesting that has never been discussed with our board, and now that we're putting some attention to culture specifically, that we're having some of those discussions, and it was really interesting and enlightening to hear their responses about their thoughts around the culture of our organization.
Thank you. Bob, we have another question here. Maybe you could weave that into some of your comments here if you can see it.
Okay, well, I'll talk and read. So let me, well, I think Dawn did a really good job in talking about the importance of asking questions of staff, and then being willing to hear the feedback and make adjustments where possible. And I think that that's, you know, just tremendously important. And then I'll echo some of what Caroline talked about in terms of culture. And I think that we are in the nonprofit sector are increasingly competing against for employees who are also being sought after by organizations that can pay them better and offer richer benefit packages, and that's and in an environment of no rate increases for many years, it's a real challenge to be able to continue to recruit and retain quality staff. We have that throughout all of our organization, and one area in particular that I'm just especially conscious of now is the challenge that we have in recruiting nurses into our detox program, because there's such a shortage of nurses statewide, and some of the hospitals, for example, are able to pay at a much higher level than we are, and it ends up that our benefit, and all of us in the sector, is really our mission focus and our culture and the other kinds of less tangible sorts of benefits that we're able to offer to our staff. And so I actually might come back, because I don't know the question that's posed there, and I don't want to.
I can read it. I
okay.
kind of opened it up a little wider for myself too. So if they could make some comments about what they're doing to educate and train senior and line management about fostering a positive workplace culture. So that kind of asking about, how are you helping to promote this and provide education to your management? And you mentioned the board that you're bringing this up and discussing it, but how anything specifically the mentioning of the book The Soup was really helpful. Any other kind of training or educational activities have you all been engaged with?
Well, I'll just say that this is not directly it's not directly a resource specific for organizational culture, but I think that it really helps to foster a positive culture. And we've been working to increase the training of our staff and our senior leadership in motivational interviewing. It's a modality that's really effective and evidence-based in our client work, but I think that some of the precepts and the spirit of that approach around kind of trusting in the wisdom and knowledge of the staff who are there, and kind of pushing authority and decision-making power down to people to help empower them to make their own decisions wherever possible. And I think that's we're trying to infuse that kind of spirit throughout the organization, both in terms of the clinical service delivery, but then also in our work with one another.
I saw some head nodding. Anyone else would like to kind of follow up on that?
Yeah, well, I just another, and I agree with Bob. I think that that staff training being a priority is another way to promote positive culture, and that made me think of a couple of things. Through the Maine Association of Nonprofits, we had one of our residential teams go to one of their trainings, which incorporated the administration and then the results of the DISC profile, which is really your workplace profile, personality profile. And they gave you not only what your profile is, but how your profile interacts with everyone else that goes from your team to this event, which was just really fascinating and helped to really create an even more positive feel amongst the staff within that residential component, which, we've got people on the line that I'm sure are experienced in residential, and residential has lots of dynamics that go on because, people are living there, and it can stir up, personal experiences and feelings, and, that there can be heightened experiences, I think, in residential, just by nature of the chaotic environment too. So So that was an area that we were helping to try to enhance the culture, you know, really being a strengths-based culture and having, you know, people look at what their own personal strengths were. And so we used that information to really assign tasks to people based on their own strengths. You know, so someone that is much more detail-oriented, it makes more sense to have them checking paperwork. Versus the person that loves to, you know, be social, having them do outreach. So that really helped to shift some of the culture, you know, for us within. And then, you know, another thing that we used this year as sort of a training tool, and this comes from our own, you know, strengths of staff and their experiences, that we had one of the components do almost, and I'm forgetting the name of it right now, but the not theater, but we put them in the family, and one of you other clinicians, Bob, maybe you can help me, because I'm blanking on the name, but, you know, based on their, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to skip that. I cannot think of the name of it. But
family roles? Are you trying to, Caroline,
no,
family roles, or no? Yeah.
No, it was based on like how the team was interacting with each other, and they used it in family therapy, family sculpting. There it is, family sculpting. So we did sort of the workplace sculpting, and you know how people were interacting with one another. And you know, one of our family therapists, she's actually one of our program managers, led this activity. You know, so one of the teams that were having some trouble. She came in and sort of listened, you know, we had this conversation, and she placed people, and it stimulated this amazing conversation, you know, and really an effort to bring up and bring about trust and how to create a safer experience where people felt like they could share how they were feeling. So I think, you know, we all have so much within our own, you know, organizations that sometimes we don't tap into for our employees. And we use all those skills for our clients, but sometimes something from within the organization could also be helpful to create, you know, a better culture.
Okay, Dawn, do you have any follow-up comments, or we could go to the next question? Yep.
I'll be pretty short because I think they both make great points, and I don't need to be repetitive. But I think that the question about how do you kind of train and educate your leadership, I think for us it's not so much a matter of training as it is just constant conversations. Our leadership are the ones who really are the ones enforcing the culture that we're trying to make. So they're already there. They don't necessarily need to be educated, but I think that we need to be able to challenge each other and make sure that we're following through with the culture that we really want to have. So it's kind of on us that if we see something that might be veering away from what we're trying to do, to be able to, you know, talk about that and call each other on it and keep us on the right track.
Okay, thank you. So we have the kind of going towards the end of the questions here. You know, would you do this again? Would you recommend it to others?
Well, we've actually already registered for 2017, so absolutely we'll do it again. We plan to continue doing it. And I would absolutely recommend it to others. I mean, I think there would be nothing better than going to that banquet and seeing the top 10 all be from nonprofits and social services. I think that would be ideal.
And we too plan to participate this. We made an executive decision this past month that we are going to continue to participate in this going forward, that it's a really good tool and helps to, you know, guide the culture of our agency. And I want to also answer the question someone asked, what was the name of the book I referenced, and it's SOUP, S-O-U-P. And it's a very thin, short, easy read and easy to bring to staff too.
So Bob, are you thinking about doing this again? And
we are, yeah, we do intend. We feel like the benefits are enough to justify the expense and the time that goes into making it into applying and going through the process. the employee feedback, the exposure, and the having that as an available tool to use for funding applications, I think is really worthwhile. And I think just as a, in terms of social service providers and nonprofit sector and all of that, I think that in terms of part of the question about would I recommend it to others, I would, because I'd like to just see the those kinds of benefits that Milestone has experienced from the best places to work application and designation sort of generalize across the whole sector. So I would encourage others to consider it.
Okay, so it's open now. We're not trying to market this to anybody, but I'm just curious, maybe a few others might be curious. It's applications are open now, and what's kind of the timeline in terms of making decisions, the process? I didn't touch on that on the opening. Maybe someone could reflect on that piece of it.
I don't know the answer to that question.
I think that registrations are accepted until sometime in May. I wouldn't dare say the exact date, but I believe you have until May to actually register. Mm-hmm. And then the process starts from there as far as the application and the surveys and the rest of it.
Okay.
And Kate, I
know somebody asked, well, I was just going to say, I see somebody asked a question about what the cost is. And so I'm just putting the question out there because I don't myself remember what the cost is to participate.
And I don't either.
Yeah, I don't either.
Well, I'm sure it's on the website.
Yeah, I did see, but I hate to say it because I'm not 100% sure. It did it looked like it could potentially be not a reach for any organization. I think there's a commitment of the dollar amount, but obviously there's a bigger commitment in terms of the time and engaging your employees in this process and responding to it. So I think the commitment is beyond the dollar to enter the contest. So do we have any? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I see that Anne also asked the question about whether pay or benefits was one of the lower areas. I think Caroline mentioned, I think Caroline had spoken to that point. And the feedback we were getting from staff on our survey was that wages were too low. They were generally satisfied with the benefit package. So that was the feedback we were hearing, and we agree with the staff.
And I think that's very similar for us. I think all of our staff would like to have higher wages, and we wish that we could do that. We have a very good benefits package, and that was actually listed as one of the strengths by our staff. But I think it was also asked, I think, how do you kind of combat that when you don't have extra funds? For us, it's through things like flexibility. Our staff know that if their child has a game, they're going to be able to go and see that game. They don't have to worry about that. And I think it's just the mindset. It's that positive culture that we've been talking about that makes it worth it to work here, even if you're not getting, a higher pay. It's very important to us to stay competitive, and we try to make sure that we do that. But we're a nonprofit. There's only so much that we can do when it comes to the actual pay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just checking to see if there's any, I think we did answer the question. So I guess any kind of last comments from anyone, anything, specifically you touched on the pays and the benefits. Many of you rated higher on pay, was a little bit lower. Kind of the flexibility is a piece that you have control over, and you all seem to support that, and generalized communication and openness and transparency in terms of your organizations seem to be key areas to making the culture a positive culture for folks. Any last comments for anyone around the work that they've been doing or the feedback that they've gotten through this process?
I think, again, I would encourage people, if they're considering applying, I would encourage them to do it. I think that just the knowledge you gain from it is well worth it. Even if we hadn't placed in the top 10, it still would have been worth it to do, just to be able to hear that feedback from our employees and make changes based on that, that we know we're making it an even better place to work.
Okay.
I would agree.
I almost wish I was an anti-best places to work person, because it sounds so much like an infomercial. But I think we all probably are struggling with the same workforce issues. I think those exist all across the state, and anything that any of us are able to do that help to, kind of turn the tide a little bit in any of our favor, or in the favor of this whole sector, I think is certainly worthwhile.
So thank you all, and I have put on the screen the email addresses for our panelists and me. Please feel free to reach out to them after the webinar. I'm sure they'll be happy to share more, answer any questions, or to contact CCSME as well. Following this webinar, we're going to be sending you out an email with a link to complete an evaluation, because we truly want to know how this was for you. And then we will be sending out some certificates of attendance. So I just want to thank you, Dawn and Caroline and Bob, for your time and your thoughts. And you've done some wonderful sharing. This is such a critical issue for our nonprofits and human services around the culture and the retaining and recruiting employees. So I thank you for your time and your sharing.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you.
Okay, take care, everyone.
Bye.